Hi Turo fans. So in today's video I want to talk a little bit about the size of our fleet, how we've added cars, kind of the status or the stage where we're at now. So if you've been following, you know that we got involved in Turo basically in November of 2022, and right now it's April 21st of 2023. So we've been at it for about 5 months at this point. Now, we started out with 2 cars, and since the first of the year, we've added a total of 7 additional cars, and we now have 9 cars, which you see here on screen. Now, I want to point a couple of things out. First of all, you'll notice that at the top of the left side, the Hyundai Accent is snoozed. That's because for the last 3 weeks, I've had a renter that is renting that car that every time it gets close to the end of their rental term, within a day or two, they extend it. So I told the renter, that guest, that I would snooze the car so nobody else can rent it until they let me know that they won't be continuing to renew. One of the reasons I do that is because when they renew for a day or 2 or 3 or 4 at a time, they pay the highest rate. And of course, so extending a rental term is a great premium daily rate source of revenue. Now you'll also notice in the right-hand column, the 2011 white Volkswagen Jetta shows as unlisted. Now this is a car that has been listed, and I've had it in for a few repairs. It actually has only gone out on one rental, which it is currently out on, but the car has just had a recall notice pop up according to Turo. Now, Turo says there's a recall notice. About a week ago, the recall notice popped up just as that car went out on rent. So, of course, that person was able to rent the car. And then a couple of days later, the recall notice was removed. And then just about 15 minutes ago, the recall notice was apparently renewed, and the car is currently unlisted. So I'm going to have to take that into the dealership, it looks like, and get the recall, whatever that is, taken care of. But you can now see that we have 9 cars. So next I'm going to show you the new calendar feature and show you kind of what our productivity looks like. Okay, so now on screen what you see is the new calendar feature showing the trips. Now, as of about a week ago, we actually had a 10-day time frame where every single car was out on rent. Now, at that time, we only had 7 cars. We've just brought 2 additional cars into our fleet. But there was real tickled that there was a period of about 7 or 8 days where every single car was out on rent. And of course, that's what you want as a Turo host, is to have every single car out on rent. And we were literally kind of sitting around twiddling our thumbs, and I used that time frame to go out and research and find a couple of additional cars to add to our fleet, which I'm going to show you how we analyze cars and buy cars, kind of walk you through that process in just a moment. But first, I'm going to show you also kind of what our earnings looks like as we've been adding cars to our fleet. Okay, so this is our earnings to date, and as you'll see, we started off the year. Well, let's just click over these and look. So January, we had $985 worth of earnings, and that was really primarily on 2 cars. We had a 3rd car really kind of come online right at the end of January, and so a 3rd car was sporadically in the fleet. We had a wrecked car as well in late January, so February was a kind of wasn't really a great month. We did actually have 3 to 4 cars available in February, but they didn't really kind of all come online until towards the end of February. So February was a little under $1,200. March, of course, was a pretty good month. As it started out, I mean, we had 5 to 7 cars during the March time frame. 5 cars pretty solidly available throughout March, $2,400. And really getting close to 7 cars. In the first part of April, we've had 7 cars pretty much available for rent the entire time. Now, it's April 21st right now, and the money that we've earned as of this point in time is $24.96, and we have bookings of 829. So we actually have something right around $3,200 of maybe $3,300 of rental income currently scheduled. And we still have quite a few cars, as you'll notice when you go back and look at the calendar, that are not fully rented for the month of April. In fact, if I go back to that tab, if you look again now, you'll see that on the second row, the Hyundai Elantra, which has been a really good rental. I'm kind of surprised that it comes in later today. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't already been rented. So we have basically about 7 more days that it could be rented. We have a 2013 Volkswagen Jetta and a 2014 Volkswagen Jetta. Both of those cars had check engine lights, and we had to have them in for check engine light work to be done. And they're now, as of today, back on the active to be rented list. So we don't have currently all of our cars rented for the second half of the last 10 days of the month, and I expect they'll rent out pretty quickly. And when they do, I'm expecting that our rental revenue for this month will be right around $4,000, maybe a tad higher, maybe $4,200. And that going forward, we should have even more significant income. In fact, I do a lot of spreadsheet projections of our business, and I want to show you how I track revenue on a weekly basis. So this is a spreadsheet that shows the rental income on a day-by-day basis, and there's a chart in the lower right-hand side that shows the actual fluctuations. And I don't know for sure that you're going to be able to see all the way back to the beginning of the time frame when I started tracking this, but last week we had $1,100, and this week we've had $848. Now, interestingly, I track the revenue on an everyday basis. As you go down, the numbers are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what hits the bank. And I'm doing this to be able to get a sense of what the timing that Turo has. But interestingly, we've not had a single week yet where we've received a Turo deposit every single day of the week. But as you can see from our trend line, I believe that we're going to start seeing weeks where we have $1,200 to $1,300 pretty regularly and pretty reliably coming in on a weekly basis. Now, this dollar per vehicle line right here, so I'm highlighting it right now, is running in the 87, 157, 106. So in terms of the revenue per vehicle per week, it looks like we'll now be generating somewhere on average in the $120 to $125 per week per vehicle range, which is kind of what I expect. My general feeling is the cars that we're buying, which run between $5,000 and $7,000, should generate about $120 to $125 per week. Some of them should generate a little bit better. On average, $125 a week is what I'm calculating or predicting. But I'm beginning to try to understand and move that bar a little bit higher based on the kinds of cars that we're buying. And so, that's the goal, of course, is to get a higher daily rate, a higher weekly average revenue per vehicle. Now I'm going to move us over and show you how I analyze cars, and we're going to look at a couple of cars. So what you're looking at on screen right now is a Microsoft Word document that I create as I'm looking to purchase a car. And this is a vehicle which is still available on Facebook. And I'm going to show you the vehicle in just a second, but I want to give you a little understanding of what you're looking at here. So I now go through a pretty detailed process on every single car that we go look at to decide whether or not in advance, of course, I'm interested. Is it worth our time to go look? Because that takes time. I got to tell you, looking for vehicles is a tremendously time-consuming job. And it's certainly an important job because you want to be able to get the best possible vehicle. You want to make sure you minimize any potential problems that you might have. So here's how we go through it. Once I find a vehicle that I think I'm interested in, I create a little profile of that vehicle. Now in this case, it's a 2011 Hyundai Elantra Touring, which is kind of like a little sort of a miniature station wagon or a little tiny SUV. It's built on the Hyundai Elantra platform. You'll see it in a second. I think we don't have one yet, and I like Hyundais, but I think it should be a good vehicle. Now, this one they're currently asking $4,500 for, but the seller originally, when they first posted it, was asking $5,500, then dropped the price to $5,000, which is the point in time I got interested. They've currently dropped the price to $4,500, but in my conversations with the seller, they've already told me that they would go to $3,950. Now, what I always do is I ask the seller to send me the VIN number if they haven't already posted it, and then I run the VIN against the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration website recall notices to see if there's any recalls. In this case, there are none. The reason recalls are a problem is because, I mean, it's not a big deal to get a car fixed. Recall-wise, it doesn't typically cost you any money. The dealership, the manufacturer has to cover that cost. But because the car is listed on the NHTSA database and recall, you can't list it on Turo until that recall has been cleared. And so when you get the recall performed by the dealership, it'll take anywhere between a few days and a couple of weeks, maybe even longer, before the NHTSA database gets updated. Most of the time, when a recall's been performed on a vehicle that I've purchased, it's about 3 to 5 days, but it has taken a little over 2 weeks. And there's no real rhyme or reason to that. So I run the VIN number to see if there's any recalls, and then I pull up the Kelley Blue Book site, and I get a trade and retail value for the car with the miles that it has on it. And my goal is typically to try to buy as close to the Kelley Blue Book trade value, typically the high end, because I'm not an auto dealer, so I can't buy them at auction. But I'm trying to buy the car as close to the trade value as I can, trying to get it somewhere between the high trade and the low retail. And then I pull a Carfax if I'm really interested. Now, one of the unanticipated costs of this business has been Carfax. I started using Carfax on every single vehicle that I'm seriously interested in pursuing, and that's a cost of $20 per vehicle. And here's something interesting that you may not yet know, and that is that it takes about 10 Carfax reports before I'm able to buy a vehicle. Well, 10 Carfax reports, if you buy them at 5 at a time and you use them as you have an opportunity or a need for them, that's your best price, $20 per Carfax. So 10 Carfaxes, that's $200 that you're adding to the cost of every vehicle. In fact, I had pulled a total of 20 Carfaxes, which was $400 worth of Carfaxes before I found my second car on the most recent purchase acquisition spree that I went on. So it starts to get kind of expensive, $400 additional dollars that you don't anticipate or think about, but it's important to do. Now, the car that I'm going to show, and Carfax, by the way, on this vehicle said that the trade value is $4,180 and the retail was $8,120. So between the Carfax and the Kelley Blue Book numbers, I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what the value of this car should be. Now, as we go look at the car, you're going to notice that there's a right front quarter panel light area that's been damaged, and so there's going to be a damage to the door and to the right front quarter panel. That's about $750 worth of damage, maybe a little bit more to repair, and the seat needs to be repaired. So I've preconditioned myself to be willing to pay somewhere between $3,100 and $3,500 for this car. Now, the sellers come down to $3,950. They're still about $400 or $500 away from where I'd like to buy the car. Now, I haven't driven the car yet, so this presupposes that the car drives and seems like it's in excellent mechanical condition. Now I pulled the Carfax, and the Carfax showed relatively sporadic maintenance, at least what's recorded. So the maintenance may have been greater, but it's recorded as being, pretty sporadic. It's a one-owner vehicle before the dealer that is selling it got it at auction, which is where they got it. And the mileage, I tracked the mileage. The mileage is accurate, and that's a big deal because, of course, there's a lot of cars out there, and so far I've found somewhere between 10 and 20% of the cars, 10 to 15% of the cars that I pull a Carfax on, 10 to 15% are misreporting the mileage. So the Carfax, you can watch the history of the miles, and you can see when it suddenly drops back down from like 180 to 110 or something like that. That's obviously a rollback of some sort. I don't know how they did it, but you want to check that because there's a lot of people that do that. Now, there's also a lot of people that will put engines in cars and change them out. And they'll try to tell you on Facebook that this car only has, say, 80,000 miles on it. But when you actually pull the Carfax, you'll see that it has, 170,000 miles, but only 80,000 on the engine, and you don't know who's put the engine in. So Carfax is a really big deal. Now, this car had 4 accidents during the ownership period. They were all either minor or the worst one was moderate. Fender bumpers. This looks like it was a car that was probably owned by, I'm guessing, a young person, but the car was owned for the entire length of time by the same person. The service history indicates kind of irregular maintenance. The right front fender is damaged, and the front seats are both need to be recovered. One is really desperate. The other one just needs to be recovered to match. So I use this as the argument to get the vehicle price to be lowered. I'm estimating that the investment that I'd have to make this vehicle rentable would be somewhere around $1,200. So with all that said, let's now go look at the actual vehicle. So now I've switched over to Facebook Marketplace, and you have the ability in Facebook Marketplace to save vehicles or other things that you want to purchase, and they're in your saved area. So when you log in, you'll go to the Marketplace, go to Buying, and then click on, let's go to Buying, come on, Buying. There you go, and then click on Saved. And so what this will do is this will show you all of the vehicles that you have saved. And this one in the upper right-hand corner, this red vehicle is the one that I've just described to you. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up by clicking on it. And here's what the seller has shown. Now you'll see it says listed a day ago or a week ago. This has actually been listed for several weeks. And so if I click through the photos, you'll see that they don't show really. Now you can see the damage on the right front area where there's a lot of issues right with the bodywork right near the light. That's where one of the most recent damage occurred to the vehicle. And here's a front view. You can see the right front is a little bit out of alignment and no interior pictures. Okay, so I messaged this person and asked them to send me interior pictures, and here's what I got. I got a whole long list of communications, one of which they did send me the interior photos. And so I'm scrolling. So here's an interior photo. Now at first I asked for interior photos and they sent me basically something like this. Now that's a really tiny little, they didn't want me to see the interior. So I pressed and they sent this, which when you make it large, this is the interior photo and you can see the seats. Okay, so the damage on this, there is damage to this seat panel right here. That seat panel, a leather replacement of that seat panel is about $125 to $150. If we do the same thing on both seats, which the other one, I don't know if it really needs it or not. It's kind of hard to tell by looking at it. But if you did it, if you had them both replaced to match. Now this is a nice vehicle in the sense that it's a premium vehicle at its age. It has leather interior, which on a Hyundai Elantra is kind of rare. Look at that steering wheel. It's in good condition. So it has the potential to be a real pretty little car. And I like Hyundais. I like Elantras. They rent well. They generate good revenue. But the trick is buying them right and having them look good and be mechanically sound. So generally, they're pretty easy to fix. They're not terribly expensive to fix. So this vehicle has a couple of issues that I'm willing to invest in if when I go drive the car, it's mechanically sound. But I didn't buy it, and I'm kind of off it at the moment, but I am watching it. So one of the things that is useful with the Facebook Marketplace is you can keep a list of the vehicles that you're interested in. Let me just go ahead and minimize that. And you can kind of watch what's happening to them. So there's a whole list of vehicles here. And, these are vehicles that I've flagged for future. I can see what has sold, what hasn't sold. I flag them for the future. And when I'm ready to buy my next couple of cars, one of the first things I'll do is come back and see if any of the vehicles that I was interested in are still for sale. Well, if they're still for sale, then that probably means either that there's a problem with them or they're still a little high priced, but it also means that the seller may very well be more motivated because it's been available for long enough now to where, they're just becoming a little anxious, if you will, for the vehicle to sell. Now, there's a lot of, things you'll learn by talking to people about their vehicles and communicating to them on Facebook about their vehicles. But one of them is that if you ask people, when somebody doesn't show you interior photos, it's almost always because the interior looks kind of crappy. If somebody doesn't show you real good photos or they're blurry photos, there also is probably a reason. If somebody's not willing to send you the VIN number, they've already figured out that when somebody pulls a Carfax, their car is not going to look real good. So they're hoping for somebody that'll come along and buy their car that isn't smart enough to pull a Carfax. Don't let that person be you. So another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go actually do a search and show you what I found on currently available and talk about this vehicle. Okay, so now what I've done is I've pulled up the Facebook Marketplace and I've set my parameters to $31.49 for the low price, $69.99 for the high price. 2011 to 2017 is the year range, and maximum mileage of 128,000. Now, I could just go through and search for anything that fits that, but I have particular cars that I like, and you'll end up being the same way. So I'm going to search specifically for Volkswagens. So I'm going to come down and click on Volkswagens, and now we're going to see a list of the Volkswagens that are currently available. Come on, there we go. So $3,300 for a 2005 Volkswagen Jetta. Now, immediately I know, because I see 2005s and 8s, that the Facebook tool somehow lost the age range. So it's not properly showing the age range. So I'm going to hit enter and see if I can get it to only show me. There we go. Now we have a proper age range. So there's a Volkswagen 2017 Tiguan, a 2017 Jetta, and a 2014 Jetta. Now, the 14,000 miles, that's somebody that is playing games with the mileage. That's either 140,000 or it's 14,000 miles on the car that I've driven it. I don't really generally mess with those, but I am going to go look at this one, this $4,000 2014 Volkswagen Jetta, 69,000 miles. Is that even realistic? Now you'll notice that they don't give any description here. They don't say it's a clean title. This is almost certainly, if it's legitimate mileage, it's almost certainly a rebuilt title car. So I'm not going to look at that one and not going to spend any time on it. I'm going to come down and look here. Oh, this is interesting. 125,000 miles, 2011 Volkswagen Jetta. So I'll go look at this and take a quick look here and see. And it says a clean title, and it says I'm selling my 2011 Jetta. Well, that doesn't sound like a dealer, and it may not be. 4,200 or best offer. It's got a headliner problem and a driver's seat problem. So let's go take a look at this car a little further. So we can take a look. The body looks to be in pretty good shape. I don't see any major damage. The headliner's hanging down. That's a $300 to $500 repair right there. Now look at these seats. This is $125 to $50 for that panel. The back has a split in it. That's $125 to $50. Now the back is much larger, so that may be $200 to fix that. And you have this side piece. That's $125. So let's say $200, $250, $150. So you're looking at around $500 or $600 to fix this seat. Now, you may be able to get it done, depending upon who you know. You may be able to get that seat fixed for as little as $400, but you're probably looking at $500 to $600 to get this seat fixed. So, the question now, it's what kind of car is it? So if we click around, we can click and look at the back. You can notice that it's a 2.5 liter 2011, $4,200. They might be willing to negotiate. They say they will. So if you can get this car for $4,000 or $3,800, and then if it's mechanically fine, and then you end up putting a little money into the interior, now you have a really clean looking 2.5 liter Volkswagen Jetta with leather interior. That's a very nice car. Now, what about damage and things that you're going to have to do to fix on the car? All right, so I've come up with a kind of a short list of the kinds of things that almost every car has, in my experience now, 5 months into a Turo, having bought 9 cars. I can confidently say that on average, every car is going to need around $1,000 worth of work after you get it. And additionally, every single car could use an additional $1,000 worth of work to put it in its best possible condition. So what are some of the items that need to be added commonly? Well, most cars will need 1 or 2 tires at $100 to $150 a piece. I like to get my tires at Discount Tires. Most cars are going to need an alignment. Not all of them, probably 50% of cars are going to need an alignment. If you get an alignment, it can be probably about $125. If you want to use Firestone and get unlimited realignments, you're looking at about $200 for the vehicle. Brakes, most cars, I'd say 25 to 30% of the cars are going to pretty quickly need some brake work. That's an ongoing maintenance thing, but you're looking at $250 to $350 depending upon whether it's front set, back set, both sets, that kind of thing. Now, again, torn seats repair for either leather or cloth, you're looking at $100 to $125 per panel or a little bit more. Headliner replacement, $300 to $500. That's been the case now on 3 vehicles. Interestingly, 3 of them were the Volkswagens, so this seems to be a problem with Volkswagens. Front bumper, rear bumper, you're looking at $500 to $700. If it's just replacing the bumper shell, taking the old one off, putting a new one on, pinning it up, and then painting it before you put it in. Rack and pinion steering replacement, I've had that come up. That's $1,500 if you have, $1,000 to $1,500 if you have an auto shop do it. If you go to the dealership, look at twice that, $2,500 to $3,000 for a rack and pinion. I had that because there was a leak, power steering fluid leak, and it was coming out of the rack and pinion gear mechanism. If you need to do a tune-up, you're probably looking at $60 to $70 per cylinder. So, 5-cylinder car, $70, you're looking at $350 for a 5-cylinder car. If you go to an auto shop now, if you can do that work yourself, then it's just the material costs alone. Drive belt replacement, say $150 to $300 for most vehicles. Again, having a shop do that, that's not something I'm confident doing. Power steering pump, maybe $300 to $500. Radiator core repair, $500 to $1,500. Now, that's taking out the radiator, putting a new one in, or rebuilding the core support if there's been a front end collision and maybe it hasn't been properly fixed. Oil changes $50 to $100 depending upon where you go and what kind of oil you get. Head gasket leak, probably $150 to $300. Catalytic converter replacement, $800 to $2,000. I actually had that come up. And then, of course, recall notices. And one thing, I've had so far one vehicle that needed a power window motor. I watched a YouTube video and did that replacement myself. The motor cost $35. I had to watch a video. It was a lot of fun to actually do it, but I saved myself at least a couple $100 over having an auto shop and mechanic do that work. So depending upon how much of that kind of stuff you enjoy doing, your cost would be less. But again, every single car that you buy on average is going to have $1,000 worth of stuff that it needs and another $1,000 worth of stuff that it could use to make it even better. Now, there's almost no limit to how much money you can pour into a car, so you have to decide how much you're willing to invest. Where's that balance between being perfect and being good enough? And of course, the better the car is, the better your reviews. I had an issue with a car that the person gave me a horrible review, and as a result, I am not going to be qualified to be an all-star host because I had one-star review from somebody that was just real upset. Now, I won't go into the details on that, but I think they were unfair, and they were actually trying to avoid being penalized for damaging the vehicle, so they found a bunch of stuff negative to say about the car. But in fairness, the car wasn't as clean as it could have been, and so I take responsibility for that. But anyway, I thought this might be useful. This is kind of the pinnacle of what I've learned so far, and quite honestly, the last couple of weeks have been a difficult couple of weeks because I've poured more money into repairs and maintenance and getting these 2 new cars fixed and fixing some other cars. And so whatever money, even though our cash flow on a weekly basis is trending upwards, we're not yet pulling any cash out. So we have been investing in building our fleet and making our fleet as high quality as possible. And I'm extremely confident that we are now at a point where going forward with these 9 cars, our maintenance costs should be very low and manageable as opposed to extraordinary and investment oriented. And we should start being able to pull in the neighborhood of $1,000 a week out of the business to be able to contribute towards buying yet additional cars. So that's where we're at so far. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear if you've found this useful or valuable, and if you've your experience is at all similar. So thank you for watching, and leave me a comment. Thanks. Bye.